Joining us now, Steven Olikara, political analyst partner at Builders Movement. Steven, great to have you, as it always is. We highlighted this back and forth off the top. What does it say to you about what may be happening behind the scenes here and the chances we actually see a deal inked tomorrow?
Well, we're seeing a lot of conflicting reports. What happened this past week was Trump's rhetoric was all over the place. He had some big threats against Iran on Thursday. Iran effectively called him on his bluff. And now we see the reports today where the U.S. and Pakistan are pretty optimistic about a deal. Iran is more skeptical that one will be signed by tomorrow. I think we all hope a deal happens soon. I think the American people's patience is wearing thin right now. When you look at just all the rhetoric that Trump has said about this, the American people don't know whether to take it literally, strategically, or symbolically. And I think that uncertainty just creates a lot of exhaustion for people. So I think people will believe it when they see it.
Well, let's dig into that through a political lens, because Americans have been impacted by all of this. We've seen gas prices shoot up. There's been uncertainty in the market. The president has made the claim that essentially he's doing this to ensure the American people are safe, because without safety, prosperity doesn't matter. That was his sentiment. Is that case resonating with Americans? Has his messaging been effective to produce some buy-in?
I would argue not yet. And you're even seeing some of those Republican members of Congress who are skeptical. And in my weekly show, The Group Chat, our Republican co-hosts are also skeptical. They think the war has gone on for too long. And so I think the case has not yet been effectively made because, as the old saying goes by James Carville, it's about the economy, stupid, right? And so what voters are feeling are the pain at the pump, the rising gas prices here in Wisconsin and across the country, the rising cost of goods. And so I think Trump will get a lot more buy-in from people once costs start to go down.
Right. And the timeline, that's going to be so key in all of this. The president has made claims that he's committed to his goals. He isn't going to flinch if this does, in fact, bleed into midterm season. So he's projecting this strength. What do you believe, though, is the sentiment behind closed doors at the White House? Is it the same?
Yeah, well, I'm sure it is the same at the White House. I think if you're in Trump's inner circle, you have to basically agree with him, or you might not be invited back to the Situation Room. But I do think the outer circle of Trump's supporters, who are looking at a very difficult midterm election year for the administration and for the Republican Party, they're going to be growing more concerned because, the majority of the American people don't support this war. And I do think it's causing a drag on the Republicans going into the election. And I think, people may have different points of view on the war itself, but one thing that every American feels are the economic issues. And I think if there is a major deal and the Strait of Hormuz does open up and gas prices do go down, then we might see a different midterm election outlook, but we just don't know yet.
Right. It's high stakes. And, many have been critical of the president throwing out Obama's deal, that JCPOA, hammering this out in a different way. Do you see it as politically essential that the president makes it clear to the American people this is a better plan of action and that we arrive ultimately at a better arrangement?
He does, absolutely, because I think the American people will look at this war and seeing the amount of money that's been spent, the American lives that have been lost, the costs that have gone up, the fact that the regime is still in place. And so I think at the end of all of that, people want to at least believe that this deal is stronger than the Obama era JCPOA. There's no evidence yet to suggest that it will be stronger. Of course, Trump will send his Truth Social post out saying this is the, I think, quote, opposite of the JCPOA. But we'll just have to see the details and see what's actually agreed to. So we haven't seen that yet.
Right. And I wanted to ask you also about this UFC fight that's fast approaching. We have some new numbers from a recent survey that shows only 16% of Americans approve of the event at the White House, including 31% of Republicans, which was pretty shocking. The Trump administration has said that the UFC, not taxpayers, will be covering the costs here. But still in all, does this hurt the president's affordability messaging, essentially? Or do you think this is all going to be water under the bridge a few days after this transpires?
There'll be water under the bridge a few days after, but I do think this is such a spectacle in the sense that this is a major structure built on the White House lawn. I think the American people, we've never seen anything quite like this. Trump was comparing it to the Eiffel Tower. I'm not so sure about that, but I do think your point is right that this cost question, even though the taxpayers aren't paying for it directly, it does come across as extravagant. But I think the deeper point here is that we are celebrating America at 250. And I think Americans want to believe that we still have some shared civic spaces where we can connect across our differences. Based on the polling you're showing, this UFC event might not accomplish that. And you saw in the last couple of weeks, the Trump administration's hope to have these artists perform as part of America 250, but they pulled out. And so I think that's part of this deeper polarization in America, that we can't find these shared cultural spaces. And I think that is the big issue going into America 250.
Yeah, well, that does make a lot of sense. It's a unique time in history. Steven Olikara, appreciate the breakdown, as always, sir.
Thanks for having me.